DLT and those members that don't generally participate in board meetings as well. So the way we left off for the event, we gave some time for questions. We can get back into it, and I think we were at the slide around assessments.
So, at high school level, the assessments that we'll use are going to vary sort of depending on the course and on the level, just based on the way things are set up for Missouri. We'll continue to evaluate if that's something that will continue from the earlier grade levels in the district all the way to the end of sophomore year, so that we're ready for the end of course exam, just to get some practice with that testing environment. We are looking at common assessments of those writing pieces that we're emphasizing. Our PLCs, our professional learning committees, those teams of teachers who work with each grade level, do some awesome work just collaborating together. They have dedicated protected meeting time, and so a lot of common grading, of tuning, of comparing student work, of finding those examples is really going to support that work.
At the, as I mentioned, there are assessments that are part of the college curriculum and approved by STLCC. So we're certainly integrating that. And I say we because Brunstein Schreiber is also in the process of starting to develop mass communication. And so he and I are working together on some of that. So we have that, as well as the individual and newly developed assessments that we're using to make it more authentic for our students and our circumstances.
And debate is easy. In debate, we debate. And so we have the reading and the writing and the speaking that all rolls in together there. I think the last information that we really have, and any of the three of us can probably jump in on this because I think we've all participated in some form in the last 2 to 3 years. Professional development at the high school, again, is going to be a little bit more tailored to those different approaches that we're taking. Book studies is something that we're going to undertake. There are several really, really great books that individual members of our department have had really good success with, and we want to continue that. Workshopping the canon and a novel approach are both texts that help guide teachers through taking classical literary pieces, sometimes those longer, thicker pieces. Romeo and Juliet is a great example. Keeping that as a piece of the curriculum, but then also pairing it, saying what are modern pieces we can bring in, what's nonfiction, what are some poetry pieces, what are some ways that we can keep what is valuable about the classic and give that exposure, but also continue to update it and make sure that we're reflective of what our students really want to discuss and maybe have some interest in. Mechanically inclined is one of the, probably, this is a statement that might make some people wince. It's probably one of our favorite grammar books. Just that it really looks at teaching more of grammar in its natural environment, not so much memorizing of rules, of where this comma goes, of what this phrase is, but saying, okay, as you're trying to convince people, as you're trying to write for a purpose, how do you get that across? I'm really looking at avoiding those alarm bells of grammar, you know, that sort of set off the klaxons in the back of people's heads of, wait, I know that's not right, really focusing on those big, important pieces of writing. Some of the professional conferences we've been to, the Fox Literacy Institute, which unfortunately didn't happen last summer, brings in some fantastic regional and national speakers. And we've had 5 members of our department who have attended in the past. We're going to continue that. That's really excellent work. The Right to Learn conference, which is held annually. In February, we've had department members present and continue to attend there. The National Council of Teachers of English is something that we've had members published, and we're continuing to sort of use those resources. The Educators for Social Justice group in St. Louis holds an annual conference and has monthly presentations and development, and that's going to really pair in with our culturally competent and more inclusive pieces. And one of the really neat things is a collaboration with Bayless Schools. Anna Barton, who is their 6 to 12 curriculum chair and is an English teacher at Bayless High School. She and I have been able to connect virtually this year. They have actually brought in a really similar curriculum revision in their schools in the past few years. Really looking at small group novels at having lots of choice within their English classes, they really approach that from a student engagement perspective, saying that this is what is drawing more participation and more interest and making things more relevant for our students, where we're really trying to take it from that inclusion angle. But we're still going to go and observe and take a lot of the lessons. And they've already been really generous in sharing their materials with us. So it's great to see something that has been road tested locally and works with students in our area so far. And I think now I get to turn it back over.
Okay. So now, oh, sure.
The curriculum with the college, don't do what you said, the testing and evaluation. Do they tell you what you have to do? Or they just give you like, this has to cover such and such, and then you make it yourself?
For the dual
Or do they
credit,
approve it?
for the dual credit, was that the question?
Yeah, the dual credit, yeah.
There are variances among the different campuses, and so there's also variance among the different dual credits. There are learning objectives and standards that need to be used, and there are tests that are available from the college and from the individual curriculums. There's, I think, 3 different textbooks and curriculums that are used in the STLCC system. We chose one of those. So those resources are available, but there is flexibility in terms of what the final versions of the assessments looks like, as long as the learning objectives are being met.
So you can write your own and they don't have to approve it, you just gotta.
That's correct.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So now I'm going to speak about the budget impact if we purchase this resource. So if we purchase collaborative literacy, being a writer, making reading, there's some revisions to being a reader with the teacher's edition, consumables for kindergarten through 5th, and then purchasing 3rd through 5th grade classroom libraries, just one set, would be $529,000. Also, the consumables, our goal was to purchase all the consumables for 6 years versus paying $27,000 per year. That would probably guarantee us more of just that pricing to be consistent, and they are going to house it. So that's very important. And professional development will be $48,000. In the previous slide, I kind of outlined what that professional development will look like. So that's for elementary. The budget impact for Ritenour High School, the resources, and I can go down the list, but these are the resources that were requested from our teachers and various courses at the high school. And professional development would be $10,000 for Ritenour High School. So altogether, the resource request for elementary, $529,000. For Ritenour High School resources, $54,100, which makes a total of $583,100. And professional development for elementary, $48,000. Ritenour High School for the ELA department, $10,000, which would make a total of $58,000. So the total request for resources and professional development, $641,100.
Where's the 162 at, Doctor?
Mhm.
The 162,000 for the consumables, is that included in the 5?
That is included. I included that in there.
Okay. And it's better to buy all those years at once than nothing will change over the years.
If it does, as far as the consumable, I'm sure that they would make those changes in that consumable. And they're going to house it there, so that would, yes, yes.
Okay. And what
That's a
was
good
our
question.
amount that we spent for this? The amount we spent before for this, that for replacing?
You're talking about from the previous Good Habits, Great Readers? I don't have that
You know that
number.
one, Dwight?
No, so I can get that tomorrow in the Friday memo. That would have been 7 years ago, so that would have been 2014. I'll get that price and get it in the Friday memo tomorrow.
I guess the current question, because it was 7 years ago and things have honestly gone up in price. What was our budget
Yeah,
set
that's
aside for this?
So the budget for the district or for the ELA?
For the ELA,
Yeah.
for this? Did you guys plan for it, so what is the normal budget?
Yeah, so generally ELA is one of the largest adoptions that
Right.
we have district-wide. We have had ELA adoptions that have run in the neighborhood of $1 million. So that's generally what it would look like. We'll look back to where it was in 2014 and we can get that information.
And this doesn't include pre-K, middle school, and grades 11 through 12. We're working on that for next year.
So are we on budget for this portion of it?
So I think, this isn't a situation with a curriculum adoption, it's kind of like a zero-based approach. So we build it from the ground up based on the input of teachers. So that's where it starts. We have ideas of what it's looked like in the past, but there's a couple of big decisions that go in there. The idea of going with novel sets, the idea of not going with just specific programs or basals or readers for kids, going more of learning grammar in the context of learning. It's hard to ballpark what the budget is going to be. It's really based on a lot of teacher input.
I'm good with it, because it's like half of the grades are getting taken care of. If we normally spend about $1 million 7 years ago.
Well, I mean, it's a matter of just, getting what our students need. Okay, we could talk about dollars and cents. It was just a question to come up with to see where we are. But basically, I mean, I got a group of teachers up here that are talking very fluently, I guess, about it, and I'm encouraged by the group. I mean, we got an all-star group standing right there with the leader of the group there. And very good, thorough presentation, very good, informative things. You guys have had it broke down. You've studied it. You've talked to Bayless about it. And there's really no holes in the plan. This is a good plan. And yes, in the past we've had $800–900 million curriculum adoptions and everything. And for what we're looking at here, it looks like it's very informative. It's very intuitive. It gets the books in the kids' hands.
Appreciate that feedback. And I know a part of the presentation from the team tonight was to allow the board to explore the materials. And so that way you can the board members can get their hands on the books as well.
I do have one question. On the elementary resource request, it says 3rd to 5th grade classroom library, one set. Is that like one set for the whole district, or?
So it's a set of 120 books in a classroom library that each 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade classroom is going to get.
Okay.
Of that 120 books, 25% of the books are slightly below level, 50% are on level, 25% are above level, culturally rich and responsive relevant text in there as well. So that's really to make sure that our intermediate teachers and kids have equitable access to text across the district as well. You could go into one teacher's classroom and they may not have the best classroom library. You can go into one that's been collecting for years but may have older text. So this is really going to get new text and good text into every kid's hand.
Every classroom will get one set.
Correct. Yes, every 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade.
3rd through 5th, yeah.
I just wanted to make sure you were going to have enough. So.
And there's more to buy if you want to give us more money.
We just put one set
We
on
kind of
there.
slimmed it down, but there is more.
Yeah, they said what, 2 sets?
Yeah, the quote was for 2. We just are going with 1 for right now. So.
Right.
Yeah, I'll say that I just have a comment. I feel like this is, and that just kind of solidified it too, is that it feels like it's kind of level setting again. And if, since this is like a 7-year thing, which I didn't realize, it feels like it's an investment, right, into like the next 7 years. And it feels like it's not just responsive to the current times and the changing times, but what's to come as well. And it feels very kind of proactive. So I really appreciate that and the thoughtfulness that's gone into it. And I think I mentioned it to you all as we were walking back to the awards, that I appreciate that the student feedback was there at the beginning, because ultimately that's who this is for, and that's who's going to be most effective. So I just love that's kind of how the process began. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
So, board members, do you wish to take a bit of time to check out the resources? Is that what you had planned, Dr. Stewart,
Yes,
as
and
well?
we can come over there and kind of explain some things about the resources and answer questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, well, I do it in the habit.
Oh, yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean, I don't charge, I just do my credit card and everything. So it's free, and if you like them, that makes me happy, and I like them, I can just them on the wall. You know, she's like, okay, we're gonna leave it.
So it's 20% lessons that go over letters of sounds. There's books that you bring, as well, flashcards, lots of stuff to make. So after going through this cycle, that's like the first experience.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. That's kind of, I agree.
Second edition. Second grade, we do word study. So, experience word parts. Those words and suffixes, prefixes, affixes, all those different things. The second grade experience, we get more words and sort them by the different word parts and so there's
Because, you know, teaching and all
things like that. So that's the second. We actually had our second grade students this year do word study. Because in this year, we wanted to make sure that our third graders got a lot of rigorous instruction. So our third graders got this as well. Second graders next year will not do this again. And that houses everything for you. That we're able to those two letter sounds, spelling sounds, because we're so crazy. Keep going. Stop here.
That's kind of my excuse with my
And then it's like, okay, you're going into let's start instruction the next day. Yes, and this is really cool So some of it's independent, some of it's class-wide, but ask yourself about your class. And this but some of the class ones, is ask yourself about your class.
Yeah, they do.
Books are heavy. Books can have related to social emotional learning. And that kind of guides the teachers. And it's going to give you some notes on that page. It's like, hey, go back and read some of this. So this has been really this company actually has a separate
Well, I'll just basically.
Yeah, I do. I got somebody said something about we kind of are basic groups and they're really good. I plan the readings, so I'm gonna go over there.
There's a lot of books that they do in the small group reading that, you know, the kids will read the story with the teacher and then we'll say, now go back to your independent reading, reread the book for some purposes, make sure identify those frequency words. So I mean, we have kids that love reading the books in their small group reading sets, and they do read over and over it, so. Yeah, they've got read aloud. And it also has
My daughter is.
this has everything built into This is our small group. So based on this, this is like a resident. So like I pick one based on this. So for example, I'm giving this to a child. They know their letters, they know their sounds, they know these hierarchies, but then they struggle here with some of these sounds, the TH, the message. They may not know these words, they can feel this. I want them I'm going to do these kids over the course of 8 months. There's about 3 lessons every week, and then it's going to address these sounds, these frequencies. We're going to talk about so that at the end of this, they're then embracing so that progression just keeps moving them along for months. You could have different sets.
I would think so. It looks like it's that was one of the things.
So you might be in set 2, you might be in set 4. Typically, in our age range, in a first grader, you have similar levels, which is why there's an outline. So that's where we might be creative and say, this is cool. You take, I have a set 4.
Have you seen
So Miss Joanna, you have some other set 4s where they're taking my set 4s to use that waiting time. Yeah. So I mean, you have to be creative in forming those groups, but it typically works out within the age range and the grade levels. So you may have 5 kids in set 2, 4 kids in set 3, maybe some set 1, but we're differentiating really good responses to needs. Hopefully that means that's normal. Possibly shift into different classrooms. That's what I'm saying. Like, if I only have one set, maybe this is Joanna or Spoon and take that or shift. It would really be nice for conferences. It really sets us up for learning procedures. We couldn't do mid this year, obviously. So. Yes.
But I thought it was really low and it has the seal. No, I know.
I was thinking about when I came in, because how old is yeah. Yeah, okay. Okay, oh, yeah.
And the readers, which they were able to balance out. So read together.
It's not a secret. Sometimes we have some students, you know. And
And honestly,
Yeah.
Yeah, how we're the further I got into it, the more I
we figured that I help build our students' libraries too, really give them some of those books to take home.
And we used to have a 5-year curriculum adoption cycle, we stretched it out to 6, going back to 2013. You know, because it's harder to get fidelity to
Well, and I can tell you last year, the way that.
Yes, all the
meetings that had students
are
this is a short term second presentation. This was a they're all on intervention. Great, because I can write it down and she said, but you're absolutely right. Okay, yeah. I had I had to say these are
I missed the part of it.
That just talks about the whole. That just talks about the three programs together. So the patent school district uses some these resources are probably clean, purchasing for some as well. So I'm thinking about putting some of our for
I remember that.
printing it out. I think that's a little, that's just another best. It's familiar program. So that's just that's why we went to Roseacres.
Oh, really?
And I was like, I don't know, when I was pregnant,
You all started connecting with the consultants.
So we have a designated consultant. But she also has done a lot of
Well, they had to do the testing and everything. And that's what
So thanks to our Ritenour teachers that are here with us tonight. So thanks for being here, for presenting the materials. Much appreciated. So thanks to the team. Also, board members, there was a question, I think Ms. Lonis asked a question from 7 years ago, the cost for the ELA adoption. Dr. LaChance had the information. It was $1.129 million for the ELA adoption in 2014. And that was separate from the professional development costs. And so the cost of where we are right now is significantly below where we were before. Just know that the middle school component of it would be coming as well, but based on where it is, we're tracking to be below where we were in 2014.
So 1.2 including the whole district?
That was district-wide.
District-wide.
And that's pretty good considering it's so long ago, you know, cost goes up, so.
Right,
Thank you.
right, sure. So board members, we would be coming back to you. Any questions that come up over the course of this week, please feel free to reach out. Can have members of the team answer your questions. We'd be coming to you with a recommendation at the business meeting next week.
All right, so we're moving on to 2.04, the auditorium projector. Mr. Michael Smith, Director of Operations, will present an update regarding the Ritenour High School auditorium project system for the Board of Education.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
Maybe it's me.
Works for everybody else.
I know, right?
Well, they wore it out. That is good.
There it goes. All right, so well-maintained facilities help us reach our mission and vision. And our facilities should provide the best physical environment for learning to occur, and that will help us reach our goal for equity. I'm going to talk to you tonight about the projector in the auditorium. As you know, thanks to the passing of Proposition K in 2012, we debuted this wonderful place where we are now, including the auditorium we were just in. At that time, the projection and audio systems were state-of-the-art. And you know the use that this facility has had over those years to the community events, the student events for pre-K through 12th grade. You know, it really is a centerpiece of the community, and we're all very proud of this building. Now, although the projection system in 2012 was state-of-the-art, technology has far surpassed what we have. Working with Tim Daly, our theater manager, he's been able to provide fixes that have been able to get us through. But there are some concerns that that I need to address. And one of those is the bulbs. Those bulbs are $6,000 a piece just to rebuild it. That's not for a new one. It's to send it in and they rebuild the bulb. But those rebuilds are no longer going to be supported. Also, many projector repairs are also no longer going to be supported. And when we do need repairs, most often the entire projector has to be shipped out of state to Pennsylvania. And so the shipping costs actually are generally more expensive than a repair cost when it comes to repairing that unit. If you've ever been up in the projection area, the noise and the heat from that projector, because it's one of those older units, is tremendous. And people really can't even be in the booth when the projector is running because of the heat and the noise. So we needed to learn a few things about projector systems, and so we hired a project design consultant at the suggestion of our architect. We hired Signal Systems, and they did several needs assessments, and involved in that decision making, it was me and of course Tim Daly, the theater manager. Dr. Kilbride was involved, Dwight was involved, along with high school administrators. And so they designed a system that would meet our needs, our projection requirements for the next 8 to 10 years. The system that they developed had a 2K laser projector. So what we have now is just the old-fashioned light, and this would actually be laser technology. A zoom lens, transmitter and receiver, Cat6 cable runs, stage controls where you'd actually be able to run the projection from the stage instead of only in the booth, and then a new wireless microphone. We took that to bid, and we received 3 bidders. Signal Systems, who designed the system, came in with a low bid of $89,847. However, we rejected that bid offer because it was an unfair bid. What happens that we didn't know about was that if a company is aware of a project this big, they're actually able to contact the manufacturer and get manufacturer discounts. We weren't aware of that. We didn't see that as ethical, and so we tossed that bid out. Next was TSI, and as you recall, TSI was just awarded the project for upgrading our surveillance systems throughout the district. They provided an option that actually far exceeded our expectations and the specifications. This projector, instead of 2K technology, is 4K technology, many more lumens, and even further advanced as far as technology goes. And it also included an advanced transmitter and receiver. And instead of the 8 to 10 years that we expected, this technology is actually expected to last 12 to 15 years before the need for upgrades. Now, that would not be necessarily the need for replacement. That would be just be upgrades and fixes in order to get by. And so after doing some analysis, we decided with Tim Daly that we really don't need another wireless microphone now. He's in the process of possibly doing something different with his microphones that he's considering. So we decided to remove that, and that brought the bid to $106,390. And so next week at the Board of Education meeting, I will be recommending the approval of the bid by TSI for $106,390 to replace the Ritenour auditorium projector. If you have questions.
How physically big is this?
So the projector that's up there now is about half the size of one of these tables. It's gigantic. It's huge. The new projectors are going to be smaller, because it's not going to need all of the fans and for cooling, because it's going to be laser technology instead. It's also not going to be producing the heat, and it's actually going to be producing more lumens. We're looking at 33,000 lumens, and therefore it's going to improve the quality of the image on the screen even more. The reason we need more lumens is because of the pitch of the angle of where that projector is coming. Normally they're more level, in line with where the image hits on the screen. However, ours is more of a pitch like this, and because they have to do the keystoning, that actually takes away from the quality of the image, but we will have additional lumens so that won't be as much of an issue.
you talked about the replacement or the sort of things that go into like the $6,000 light bulb and
Yeah,
stuff for the
right.
one. So what does maintenance look like on this new one?
Well, that's a great question. So TSI is actually local, you know, so now they're a national company. However, they are in St. Charles. And I went and toured their facility. It is a terrific facility, but they would be able to send people to us to repair if there ever became a need.
And the cost is about, is it like, not
The-
$6,000 for a light bulb?
That is correct. Yeah. So, when it comes to the new projector is actually the majority of the cost. It's $86,000 just for the projector itself.
Is that a custom build?
It's not a custom build. It doesn't need to be. But because it's a more advanced, because it has the higher lumens, that's actually going to exceed our needs that we originally had.
So 86 for the what's the other 20,000 for?
Labor.
To put it in or the labor for the need to be fixed?
I'm sorry, Ruth.
The labor just to put it in or?
The labor to put it in, the cables, the transmitter, the receiver, and so everything that goes along with it would make up the rest.
I mean, I think it's great that it says it's expected to last 12 to 15 years, but I don't imagine that that's very realistic because things change so quickly,
Mhm.
I mean, that's what they're telling us today, but who knows what
Yeah,
10 years from now, what it'll be.
Yeah, and to that point too, it's dependent on use. That's what we found out with our other one as well. So the expected lifespan, but then depending on how much we use it. There for a period of time, 2016, 2017, I think we had two extra bulbs on hand because the auditorium was getting a whole lot of use.
Right.
But then we went through a period of time where there wasn't much use there at all. So if we have another year like we did this year, the auditorium hasn't been used at all, really until yesterday for a choice program and then tomorrow evening for a choir event. So that's really where part of the variable is too, is how much is it going to be used?
So parts and things are like that, but the new buzzword that you keep hearing is it's not supported anymore. Look at how many Chromebooks we have that won't be supported anymore.
Right.
And so they're going to force these things into being obsolete.
Mhm.
We just made that obsolete because we're turning our backs on it.
Right.
It might last 12, 15 years if we don't have problems with it. But if they stop supporting it in 10, we're on borrowed time again.
Yeah, potentially. And the struggle with, you don't always know when that decision is going to be made about not supporting a device anymore. So
Right.
that was a big issue 2 years ago with Sonos wireless speakers that are in homes. And so they stopped supporting Series 1, and you either bought the Series 2 or you couldn't access all of the features. And so that potentially could be a piece of the puzzle. Problem is they don't let you in on that until it's.
We're at the emergencies aware who it is.
But it's good that it probably will take a lot less power.
Yes.
Heat is always the electronics enemy. Anytime you have heat in a computer or any other electronic device, that's a cause for concern with the LEDs and the lasers and everything. There's very little heat that's going to be generated. The electronics will generate more heat than the lighting system should.
Yeah, and really the 106 is right in line with where we expected it to be. We were thinking that it was going to be between 100 and 110. It came right in at that area. And I think the most concerning thing, Tim Daly has been telling us for a little while now that the current projector is at the point now, we could be in the middle of a program, that thing would go down, we would have no fix, and so, how embarrassing would that be if there's a community event or something like that going on? So
what would be the lead time for this?
I was told that they can get this done this summer. It would be ready for convocation.
So
I
I
can
have
have
a
a question
question.
about this wireless microphone. Why don't we want to get that?
So there are changes that are happening with wireless microphones as well as far as their licensing. And so Tim doesn't want to add this microphone into that because he's considering purchasing his own wireless microphones that will meet his needs for it. So we just didn't want to cross it up with two different types of microphones.
But it'll work, okay, no problem.
Oh, we don't, no problem at all.
Does it work by Bluetooth? Is it like wireless or?
Yeah,
is
it's
it-
wireless.
Yeah, I was wondering, and it does work with the format that we currently have and working with Fred, making sure like down the line.
Correct.
So I have a question.
Brett touched
Go
on
ahead.
this, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Brett touched on this, with the heat that the lights or projector will create. So have we looked at the ventilation that we allow to be around the projector? I know, just thinking about it, working with CSI and some projects for our company, we have to put in certain ventilation and fans like around our devices to make sure that we have, the unit doesn't overheat like that. So is that something that we've had them come in and look at and kind of give an assessment on, some feedback?
Yeah, they, all of those companies came in and saw and surveyed the area where that unit is. And so the concern about heat from this unit was never brought up. We were told that it has plenty of space, we have plenty of power, and the ventilation never came up as an issue.
Thank you. And so this is supposed to produce less heat.
Correct.
We never had the problem with the heat with the old stuff.
Well, you couldn't be in the same room with it. I mean, it was definitely a problem, but now,
It didn't cause anything to burn up or.
that's correct. That's correct. It didn't set off any alarms or anything like that, correct. But now, if we were to go to the laser technology, people could actually be in the room with the projector during the events.
Sounds good to me.
I'm good. You. What I was gonna ask, so, I'm good.
So thanks, Mr. Smith. So board members, there would be a recommendation coming to you next week.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
And so then we'd like to move to 2.05 graduation discussion.
So board members, Michelle is coming around to pass out the hard copy of what was emailed to you to lead this conversation. The question is around the board's role in the graduation ceremony. So as Michelle is passing that around, I'll just speak on the bullet points up top. So the graduation ceremony is on Sunday, the 6th of June at 6 p.m. There's a planning team at the high school that is deep in the work. And then the question of the board's role during that ceremony is really the last question that the planning team needs to have answered so they can finish the details. The next planning meeting at the Powerplex is scheduled for the 10th of May with the Powerplex team. Doug Bray's team is working with the planning team at the high school, and there's going to be a video that's created that gets pushed out to the students in the community so that the run of show, all of the staging and where kids will wait in a socially distanced fashion, where families will park, what the process for parking is, all that video will cover all of those details. So tonight, this conversation about the board's role, the goal at the end of this conversation is to have a consensus amongst the board. I've outlined 3 options, had the discussion with Stacy and Lisa during our weekly meetings about these 3 options. I'll explain option A, B, and C, and then there is a place for additional options if a board member would wish to bring one up. So the board's role, option A, the board would continue with their current role in the current format. Board members, students are divided alphabetically, and board members get a section of students. Board members are able to select specific students to hand their diploma jacket to in the program. And then beyond the alphabetical seating of students, student seating is organized based on the selections to align with board members for distribution of jackets. That's the way that it's currently being done. Option B would be that the board would hand out diploma jackets to graduates based on alphabetical order and would not select individual students. Option C, board would hand out diploma jackets to graduates based on alpha order. In the event a board member is compelled to hand out a diploma jacket to a specific student, board member may walk up to the student and the board member where jackets are being distributed and be present for the experience. So those are the three options, and just open the floor for the board to decide what this would look like for June 6th.
I'd like to also just ask a clarifying question. Is this for this year, or is this how we want to go forward?
You know, so my advice would be the decision that's made tonight, I think there needs to be some level of consistency for it. That would be my advice. So whether we be at Powerplex, whether we be at Chaffetz, you know, I think as much consistency as possible. You could also make the argument that this is a completely different venue, that the board might want to take a different approach in terms of their role. But I think as much consistency, if there's a shift that's made tonight, I would just stay with that shift so that students and families know what to expect.
I'm fine with going whichever the consensus is. When I got on the board and my kids were here, you know, we knew their friends and there were certain ones we wanted to hand out, and even the ones, our own children. And so my concern is you all that have children that are going to be graduating, I would like for you to be able to give them their diploma. And, you know, if there's some close friends of theirs, I would like for you to be able, because it's very special to them. I mean, there were many of my kids' students, you know, friends that came up and they were so happy that I was able to be the one. I mean, sometimes they came up and said, would you please, you know, be the one that gives me my diploma, you know? And so from that part, I think it's good for you all that have children. I don't have any children in there. I mean, you may know some of them, but I'm fine with whatever you guys decide.
Yeah, so for me, I think I'm probably the only one that has a child graduating this year, maybe. I personally have struggled with this throughout the time that I've been on the board. I feel like it's kind of a way, for me, I feel like it's in some ways an abuse of power, because people have the ability to hand select who they're going to give them to. And it makes total sense when it is your child or a close friend. But I feel like we're displacing all of the students for our purpose and our behalf. To me, option C, if we're looking at B or C, I'm open to B or C, either one. If we're looking at trying to think about it from a student perspective and the families, because I've had several families like, what? Why were the kids all out of alphabetical order? Like, I'm looking for my child to come after, my last name is M, and they came in the W's, but the community doesn't necessarily understand what's done behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm option B or C.
I understand about the community and the families and not knowing. So I understand that. In the past, my selection was always like 3 to 7 kids or whatever, and their families knew that I was the one getting it to them. So as soon as I stood up, they knew that their kids were coming up first, because they always put who you select first. So they knew that. But those people were people that I specifically, like, I haven't had any kids graduate, but very close
Friends of the family.
Friends of the family and students. So, you know, my selection was very small, but, and it was targeted to the kids that had a very deep connection. So that was, I understand, you know, where people, like, if they don't know.
Understand it, right.
Then, but like, I literally had phone call conversations with them, and, you know, some kids asked for me to give it to them. So I had a conversation with them and they knew, so it wasn't a surprise.
Yeah, it probably does look strange to people who don't understand, who are out there like, how come a W is in the middle of the B's? but, they're really just looking for their own child anyway, so.
Did I see somewhere in here where this was an outdoor venue? I mean.
Yeah, so Penny, PowerPlex is outdoor, so like all the staging and prep students are inside. And so in a socially distanced way, so it's in the mills, and students will be in groups of 20 and they'll be in a store with supervision. But about 10 minutes before the start of the ceremony, the students go outside. They're socially distanced. They bring in AstroTurf and chairs are set up. And the stage is outdoor, not far from the Cabela's. It's right in front of that very large parking lot that's next to Cabela's. There's a stage that's elevated, maybe 8 to 10 steps, and that's where the students will be walking across.
Well, the first thought come to my mind is if that's the way this is going, why can't we do it here? I mean, why did we not make a decision to do, we could do the same thing here?
So
Which we did, years ago when there were like 5 times as many students that were graduating.
Yeah.
4 times.
So we did look into doing it here. You have to get St. Louis County permission to hold an event. And so we were still subject to the requirements of St. Louis County. So like if you look around at a lot of county school districts, there's a lot of them are using the PowerPlex because they've gotten the okay. They did a site inspection where, we'll be able to have 3,000 people at the event. If we did it here, we would still be subject to the 50% capacity, all of those other guidelines. PowerPlex for some way has been able to work with the county to get around that.
So there's no limit for the students, they don't have a limit of how many people can come?
There's a limit of cars. So there's a number of cars that can come per graduate, but the number of people inside each of those cars is not stated.
They're parked in the parking lot. They are not sitting in seats around the graduates.
So when you see all these limos coming with 85 people in each one, then you'll know that
What do you mean, they're staying in their cars?
Yes,
Yeah.
they're gonna be in the car watching.
yes.
Yeah. So you can be in the car or you can be adjacent to the car. So you can be right around it outside.
I don't know what this PowerPlex is, so yeah. I
Yeah,
can't even
so-
picture it.
Yeah. So some families bring in RVs.
Yeah.
And so there'll be an RV that's brought in, they'll get directed to the back so that they don't block the view of others. There's a lot of, it's complex, but they've got it figured out.
I got a question for option A. I was just wondering, when it says pick certain students, is you talking about the whole graduation class? Is each of you want to be able to pick, is the whole class going to be able to be picked, or is it just only certain students out of that class?
So the way that it works right now, so the graduating class of 340, 370, some of the students would be selected, but not all students were selected.
It'll be divided by 7. And my 7 may have 10 people in it that I want, even though it's not overall be alphabetical order. But then wherever my 10 people were, they would be in my section. And then whatever she picked would be in her section, so that's how they do it.
Sometimes in the past, what the high school has done when dividing them up is sometimes they've had each one of our groups alphabetical order, which was even more confusing because you never knew where your kid was going to be, period. And then other times they would input the kid in as they went, but there is more than one way to make up the group. Granted, I don't want any future board member to lose the ability to make that final connection with someone that they might have been working with since they were in preschool. You make those connections with parents and with the children as well, and you want to follow that through. And I think that is an important thing. Whether the masses understand it or not, you do and they do, and you've made that connection. So I would not want to really give that up because of that. I'm sure there's enough people here at the high school to figure out how to do this and make it work to where the future board members or current board members still have that ability to hand out a diploma. And just because your daughters aren't graduating this year doesn't mean that you don't have and they don't have connections to the upperclassmen.
Yeah.
And there might be one or two people or three or more that you have made that connection with them or with the parents. And that you want to make sure that. I got some neighbors, their kids are going to be coming up there in the next year or so that I might want to give their diploma to before I'm off the board. And that would be something, you know, because I've known them before they were born, as it were. So to follow that through all the way to the end and give them a diploma as a graduate Ritenour is something special. And I don't think that's something the board really wants to give up easily.
Yeah, I agree. I would want the board to have to be able to give either their own children or, you know, like I've had 2 nieces in the past that have come and, you know, and graduate. And then one of them, there was a mix-up. I didn't get to give her hers. And as she was in line, my thought was, I should just step up there so that I can, you know, just say something real quick to whoever was handing it and be able just to be able to, because once you lose it, it's gone. You can't. But I didn't because I was just afraid it would look really odd and that the person who was already there to give it wouldn't understand what I was doing and it would look real, I don't know, it would look real strange.
That's a problem, yeah. That's a problem I have with C too, is we go up, like, if I'm handing mine out, Lisa wants to come up and do it too, it's looked like everybody would go, oh, why is that second lady coming up there?
Yeah, right,
You know,
yeah.
I think it makes them look even more obvious, where when we did it the old way, nobody really knew except for the people that, you know, if anybody was following the program, hey, how come a C's coming before a, you know, A or something, you know, I don't think everybody follows the program truthfully. I think they just look where their kid is and go from there, but I think it's more evident that we're picking, you know, showing favored if more than one person goes up there at one at a time.
Yeah, but I think as far as the communication, I mean, I think we do an excellent job of communicating in the senior, you know, parents and the seniors themselves can be told, you know, 3 or 4 times, you know, this is what's happening. And if, you know, even if your name begins with a W, you could be, you know, towards the front if you have a board member that's requested to give you, you know, and I would think anybody that reads any of that communication would understand that. I've never had anybody say anything to me about, you know, the alphabetical, you know, the issues there. I'm sure there's some every year, but I've never heard that comment.
Have we thought about asking the students to request the person? So that way it's not a big surprise. I mean, I just want to make sure that if you're choosing somebody, they should know, like, you should have a connection between them. They should know, and it shouldn't be a surprise to their family or to them.
I would think they do. We don't know them.
Yes, let me clarify. I wasn't saying that the students that you pick don't know. I'm saying the students that have been in alphabetical order in every award ceremony in their life, the ones that are displaced because we choose to pick or board members choose to pick, those students and their families are the ones that are like, what's going on? I'm in alphabetical order and everything else in my life in the district. Today I'm over here. Why is that? And those students then go back to the administrators in the district and they're questioning the administrators, and the administrators are like, should I really tell the students that the board is picking favorites? Kids aren't going to understand that. As much as we think that they will, kids are not going to understand that. They're kids. They're not going to understand that. They're going to understand if it's your child. That makes total sense. But they're not going to understand the extent that it goes. I don't think. And from what I've heard from students, yeah, that's a lot of people don't understand that in high school.
You know, and the administrators will follow the line. Certainly don't throw the board under the bus or anything like that. But, the response is something similar of, this is the way that it's been tradition here in the district. But there are a number of questions that are asked around seating. What do you think, Dr. Alvin?
I'm on the fence right now because it's like, I know how it was when I graduated. I was my brother's very first diploma that he handed out when he was first on the board. So I understand the connection with having your child or family member. And it was especially important because my mother had passed away not 3 days before. And so that was important. But I wouldn't want to be making that decision necessarily to not make the other students feel important as well, in terms of thinking that it's more important for one situation or the other. So that's why I'm kind of like, I'm listening to everybody's conversation. And Janiyah, I'd like to hear from you too, just as a student, kind of what you think.
I think I sort of get where she's coming from, whereas to the aspect of the people outside of the school not knowing what's going on, because certain students are coming up and they're thinking that they're next and they're not next. So if you see the next to your friend, or
Hold on, Janiyah.
You have to talk louder, they can't hear you.
if you do it like, as in like, if you have a friend and both of you and your friend have the same last name, and you think when your friend gets up, oh, I'm not after them, and then you're not after them, that might disappoint a lot of kids. Because I know a lot of seniors who basically just like, I can't wait to graduate so I can leave and go eat some food. But instead they have to sit there and wait on all these people, and now when their last name starts with Alcatraz, like, I understand what she means.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Vanessa?
Yeah, so I have to be honest, the concept, I'm catching up now, so I get what the tradition was. And one thing I appreciate about Ritenour District is that we try to keep it like a small town feel, and that really personal touch and everything. But I will have to say, I think it does feel, I think about how maybe students who they didn't maybe get an opportunity to build a connection with their neighbor, not because they didn't want to or that, but one of the teachers that I was talking to here about the curriculum, he said, one of the reasons we chose this curriculum was because our district is high mobility, is that the right term? So students, could go to Pattonville or Florissant Ferguson. And so I think of those students and how that would make them feel too, to maybe not have that special connection with the board member, and not because they didn't want to or because the opportunity just wasn't there for them. And I think that would make me feel, not so great. So in that, I would say just for fairness, to just have it alphabetical order. And then maybe there's other creative ways that the board can engage with students, having maybe some sort of special reception or something, which I don't know if that would make it worse, but where we have a special connection with students. And I think that, Jennifer, what you were saying too about like, if students then want to engage with us as well, that would be a really open opportunity for like, hey, here we are, come get to know us too. And like, so I don't know if we were like voting or what, but I would go with option B with, again, alphabetical order. We just kind of divide it up that way.
Appreciate that fact. And so like being a work session, so, we need to reach consensus here because we can't vote in a work session. I think what I don't hear people talking about is option C. So the idea of option C I don't hear board members speaking about that. I think we're talking about A or B. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's more obvious if you do C, that you make someone look extra special where the other people are like, why? In fact, we did that with somebody's kid one. I can't remember who it was one year.
Yeah. And I would also say with C, that would not only, I think it would cause confusion because it's kind of like you kind of get up there, you hand out the diplomas to your people, and then the rest, everybody in your group, and then I'm just gonna say it. I go sit down and I look at all the shoes that come walking across the stage, and I'm like, oh, they've got good shoes. Oh, they've got good shoes. You know, and I start looking at the families and everything else. And if I had to sit there and, you know, try to make sure, oh, shoot, you know, and get up for that name or whatever, it would just, I think it would cause more confusion.
Sure.
And I would go back to this communication issue too. I'm wondering, wouldn't it even be possible now for this graduation ceremony to send communication out to the students? You know, here are our board members. Do you, if you know a board member, or is there a board member you would like to have hand you your diploma? And I think that would be pretty simple. And if you had, you know, 10 that picked one person and 15 that picked another, you know, they're going to say, well, it doesn't matter. And then I don't know what you do about the alphabetical or whatever. I'm not sure you'd have to do it, but you know.
After 100 years or so, is that big a problem?
Is the way that it's been done, the tradition, an issue? Is that what you're saying?
Is that big a problem that we have to discuss it?
I think there's just different perspectives on it, and that's why
We just need to listen to everybody's perspective, and just because we've done it one way for so long doesn't mean that we, you know, keep doing it that way.
That's what I said. It sounds like there's a problem. Is there a problem with this, or is it just we'll review this and see if we want
I think Lisa's saying she's getting feedback that.
Yeah, I've been getting feedback for years, which is one of my first year on the board. I've done that, and after I'm like, I don't know about this. Like, this feels different. This doesn't feel right. And so now.
Well, I had a girl come up to me and she said that her parent was on the board before, and actually when she crossed the stage, the entire board came forward and shook her hand as she went across because of the dedication that her father had on the board. And so the entire
That's what I
board,
said, we did do that. I remember doing that before.
yeah.
And it does make it look like, oh, what's going on, you know?
But everybody, I think most people know, like, I mean, do most people know that London?
Some people do, not everybody.
Not everyone
Okay.
would. I would say if we're gonna do it that way, then like when your daughter graduates, you need to make sure that you're in the alphabet where she would be. That would be where your group is, if you're gonna do alphabetical. And then you have the problem of okay, normally the president does the like top 10 or whatever, and then if you're holding on, you know, it gets real confusing.
Yeah, and just know that this year the social distancing is part of it too. So we're working to limit the number of adults that are interacting with kids, and so that's a part of it.
And I would just like to make one more comment. I think one thing that is so good about Ritenour and in the community that it sits within is the traditions that have been created here through the years. And I think we have dropped too many traditions. And I would hate to see this one be one that we drop.
I did like the idea that you brought up, Penny, about asking a student, because I think ultimately if what we're working towards, students feel really good, you know, if it's about the student. So, because I would think I think about my son graduating and me handing him his diploma would maybe be more about me than it would be for him, because he would probably, at this point anyway, he'd love Miss Heedy, his kindergarten teacher, over me handing him his diploma, you know. But I would be like, what? Like, let me hand you my, you know. So I think also just to stick to our values of the student, centering the student and what they would want. I mean, again, I don't doubt at all that we all have special connections with our neighbors and our, you know, different students, but if it's really not even that big of a deal to them, or if they would, you know, it's more about us versus what the students want.
But that'd be kind of hard since you need to turn that in tomorrow to the committee.
So yeah, we need to give the committee direction soon, but what I'm taking from this conversation, so Penny was advocating for reaching out to the students and asking the students on this topic. Is that what you're saying, Penny?
Yeah, and Jennifer had brought that up even last year, I recall that.
So students would be seated alphabetically A to Z. Board members would receive a 1/7 slice of that. And then we would go out and reach out to the students to get their input on the topic, or if they request a specific board member to hand the diploma to them?
Yes.
I don't see anything wrong with that. It's varying the tradition a little bit, but it's still kind of in line with it. And, like, I might know, 18 students in one graduating year, and another one I might know too,
And we may know a lot of them, but if they don't care who hands them their, if they don't care who hands it to them, then they say, I don't care. Or if there is because I've already gotten phone calls. You are handing my diploma to me. And I'm like, I don't know. We've got to discuss this. And I'm good with going whichever way, but I also feel like ask the student if they want somebody specific to hand it to them. Because if they're not asking for anybody specific, then they don't really care if they get it from
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7.
What do you think of that strategy, Brett?
In a perfect world where Ritenour communicates very well, I would say, yeah, okay, that could work. But how many times does a simple communication like that fallen apart and not get into the right place?
All you can do is try.
If we say from here, I would like to give it to this child and this child and this child. It's usually her. Yeah, I know there's been times. But you go into a group of kids of 300 or 400 and you say, who wants, and they have to turn a paper in, and the person walks away maybe with their papers. How many kids might not turn it in, or they?
It's all online. They just go online like they've been doing every survey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, and we know how some of that works. So I think if it goes from the bottom up and you rely on the kid to turn it in, there's a good likelihood that the parents are gonna say, I thought so-and-so was going to give you your diploma. Oh, I forgot to do that. But if it comes from us to the high school, I think there's a little bit more weight to it.
I will say, being a parent of a senior who graduation was changed because they had to send back out a survey to the students. And if you put this in the students' hands and tell them what your ask is, they're gonna take care of it.
They're gonna what?
They're gonna take care of it. They're gonna let you know what they want. Because it's their graduation, and they've been very good about this year speaking up about what their choices have, the choices. And when you give me choices, prime example, for graduation, it was like a survey sent out to the high school seniors about how they wanted to have graduation. They did not get all the details in that first survey. So students answered the survey based upon the information that they had. And then once they realized, like, no, that's not what the survey said, they went to the administrators and said, we want to have the survey sent back out because this is not what the survey was saying to us. That was not our understanding. So then the survey was sent back out, and they had more students respond that time because the seniors took ownership of that survey and letting their classmates know, like, you need to fill this out. You need to answer these questions. So I'm confident that the students would speak up about what they want. That's just me.
Well, and they're used to everything on the computer anyway, so if it goes out, they'll
That
get
speeds
it.
it up.
And, boom, 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 they answer right away, I would think.
It just seems, this has been an ongoing discussion over the last several years. It just seems like it's sounding more and more like it's an inconvenience to the staff up here. And that every year we're pushed a little bit more, can we just do it alphabetically? In the grand scheme of things, everything will be done, graduates will happen. You'll be with them somewhere along the way. But I guess I sit there with Penny and say, this is one of those small ways that a board member can get, as I say, get paid, as it were. Get to give back to the people that helped, congratulate the people that they've walked through, seen through and everything. But if it's that big a hassle that our administrators up here just can't handle it, let's just do it alphabetically and they won't have to burn brain cells over it.
So I want to be clear, the leadership here at the high school, they'll do as their, as their directive.
Well, it's someone because we're sitting here talking about it. We talked about it several years now.
I know, but you heard Lisa say that she's been contacted with feedback from families, from students, and from staff. So it's not just staff, it's coming from all those different areas. And that's why I think that we should ask the students. I've had students tell me, I don't know why this person picked me. So to me, I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what to tell you. And I also know that there's been times that two people have picked the same person. So to me, that student should be choosing. It shouldn't be who sent it in first.
Right.
The student should be choosing who they want to hand them the diploma.
Right.
So if there is some kind of connection and we do a survey and somebody says, yes, I want Penny to give me, hand me my diploma, then I think that that's what we should do.
And I think we have technology to do that now too, to make it easier. And they're so used to it.
And I can tell you, I'm along with Lisa on the survey about the graduation. So many people, parents were like, what's going on with graduation? And I would be like, hey, and you could hear their senior in the background going, I filled it out already, so like they were on it. They are participating in it. And I'm going to say 99% of the people that we're talking about are going to say, I don't care who hands it to me.
Yeah.
It's those people that have that do have that connection, that do want that individual to hand it to them, that are going to want to pick somebody.
And it's not like a district-wide communication either, which is very different than like a selected group.
Right.
Could be like you said, 300-400. So there's an easy way to see, who hasn't completed the survey, make sure that they're contacted, like, did you see it? Make sure you get it done. So I think that's.
So that's option D. That's what we just came up with, option D. And it's not hard for the administrators to do it. They're not gonna be proud. I mean, you can.
That's probably got the survey done.
You alphabetize it and then you start going through and fixing it according to the survey. It's not that big of a deal. I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah, so we talked about trying to achieve a consensus tonight. Are we getting close that that's the direction that we're moving? I'm not sure that we're there yet. Penny, where are you?
I definitely would like to be able to hand diplomas to a small amount of people. But if we're going to do it in the way of having students pick, I think we might as well try it this year and see how that works. I don't think we're trying it. And if there's somebody in particular in this graduating class that I know, then I could get a hold of them and say, hey, there's going to be a survey, and I'd like to give you your diploma, and if you want to do that, just check my name. Then it's up to them.
Yeah.
Lisa, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm open to the survey.
Brad?
That's fine, Chris. Whatever we can get to it. If that'll make it easier, I'll go by this.
Stacy?
I'm good.
So students would be seated alphabetically. There'd be a survey passed out to students or emailed to students, and then board members and students would get matched up.
But then what happens if there are, 25 students that want particular people, are they going to be grouped into a different section? That's the only thing I'm not following here.
Yeah, they'll be grouped to whoever.
It'll be
they
the same
pick.
way we've always done it. But they are choosing us instead of us
Yes,
choosing
but
them.
with their seating, are the if I have three people, are they just gonna be mixed in with the alphabetical
Yes.
group that I would
Yes.
get? and what
Yeah,
you
so
said?
each board member will get a slice of 7. So Penny, you might get the A's through G's. And then if 3 students pick you, those 3 students would be mixed in with the A's through G's.
Okay.
Sounds like a plan to me. I don't mind tweaking it a little.
Thanks for the discussion. Appreciate
And we
it.
do that, and it works out fine. And we do it no for next year. And before, when we used to pick names, when I first got on the board, it's whoever got their list in first, which was the dumbest thing ever. And then, it was. And then we changed it, and at the peep dinner, after that was over, we just sat around with our list, and you had somebody and I had somebody, and you said, oh, well, you know, I've known her since she's 5, she asked me to do it, and I said, oh, well, I just know her, okay, you can have, you know, we went through that one, and that's how we did it. So, you know, it was done in April instead of May.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So we can get this done earlier next year.
Do we do like a general card or something? This is my last question. Do we do like a general card or something with all of our names?
They give us a handout that tells all our names, who we have.
Like a little, but do we have, would it be possible to do, I mean, maybe not this year, but just an idea, like a little postcard or something that just says like, congratulations to you, class of whatever, and then with all of our signatures on it, as like a little.
A little note card from the board to each
Yeah,
graduate.
just like a little, yeah.
Oh, you're just saying, do we just do that?
Just-
to say
yeah, I
that,
wasn't
right?
sure if
Oh,
that was just
Not at
something-
graduation, we're gonna hand out all these little cards at graduation, that's not what you're saying.
No,
Okay.
no. So I wasn't sure if us as like a board, if we do anything for
No.
graduates, like a little card or something. Anyway.
We haven't, it's not a bad idea.
That's a good idea.
Okay, I'll keep the board updated.
Okay. So we're moving to 3.0 agenda review.
Yeah, so board members, there's some policy edits that would be coming to you next week. It's under 3.01. These policy edits are directly connected to the agreement that was negotiated. Under policy GCLB, tuition reimbursement, there's some change in language specific, well, it's the reimbursement rate that was changed. Reimbursement rate at tier 1 would go from 100 to 300 per semester hour. Reimbursement rate at tier 2 would move from $70 to 210. This was a part of the conversation that we want to remain highly competitive in the region, and we saw that we were slipping in terms of tuition reimbursement for professional staff as well as support staff. So the change in the language is highlighted in yellow. Us upping our game, increasing the rate of reimbursement for up to 9 semester hours per year at tier 1, up to 6 semester hours at tier 2. Around policy GCBA, professional staff compensation, this was a part of the negotiated benefit for staff at retirement. To receive the fully eligible amount upon retirement, teacher would submit a retirement notification to HR by the end of business on January 15th or the next contract day for the current school year to get full compensation. The notification is submitted by the 31st of January or the next contracted day. There'd be a $500 less than full amount. If it's by the 31st of
January.
Of January, you can see where the compensation, where it is. If it's after that point, it's $1,000 less than the eligible amount. So the purpose in doing that is just to try to get the retirees known and in as quick as possible so that we can be out early in the hiring season. You'll see in the special meeting, the personnel list that's coming to you, we sometimes have staff members that really struggle to make that final decision. And it's a personal decision, that's people's identity. But when staff members wait until May, late April, it's harder for us to find those quality replacements. And so this just allows us to encourage staff members to let us know earlier. Around policy GCBDA, this was a part of the negotiation from last year staff members are entitled to 16 days of sick leave per year, down from 18. And then after 3 consecutive days of absence, down from 5, or a total of 8 days of cumulative absence in the same year, the district may require a physician's signed statement confirming illness and the employee's inability to work. Under GDBDA for support staff, the same reduction would move from 18 to 16 days of paid sick leave per year, would move from 5 to 3 days of absence, from 10 to 8 days of cumulative absence within the past calendar year. District may require a physician's signed statement. As it relates to GBBDA, the regulation tied to FMLA, this language was a part of the negotiation as well to be more inclusive. So it's transitioning language out, transitioning out breastfeeding to replace that with lactating, and transition the word, the pronoun her out for there, again, to be more inclusive. And the final edit, the employee should indicate the break period on whatever time record she is to be more inclusive, replace the language with they are. These edits would be coming to you next week in consent for your consideration and approval.
And we did discuss this with the support staff too in our support meeting with Dr. LaChance, and there were no objections taken to it. So just so you all know that.
Okay, then moving to 3.02, any other questions?
So board members, 3.02, the agenda for next week. And so the agenda is in board docs for the 13th of May. We'll have our standard set of reports. I have talked to Orlando, and Orlando is going to be with us. We're going to recognize Orlando during the president's report for his term of board service. We do have a plaque that will be presented to him. So look forward to having Orlando joining us next week. We've got some procedural items too under the business section, the adoption of the official election results, the appointment of the board secretary and treasurer are 2 business items. Mr. Lindhorst will give us a budget update. This will be the last budget update before we seek your approval of the budget in June. There'll be a space for NSBA conference report for those of you that attended the NSBA conference virtually. Mr. Smith will come back for your approval for the auditorium projector. We've got a good amount of construction work that's ongoing, and we've just added this item, a construction proposal or a construction item in each of the meetings, whether it be Prop S work or whether it be other district work that's going on. We'll bring a proposal to you next week on tuck pointing. So in Prop S, we've got some tuck pointing work that needs to take place in the district. Mr. Smith will make the proposal next week. And then we're scheduled to have ACE graduation on the 18th of May. We could seek your approval at a special meeting because we didn't want to be in a position to, for the first time that you see the proposal, to be seeking your approval for the tuck pointing work that needs to take place on some buildings throughout the district. So we'll make the proposal to you next week. Pending board questions, we could seek your approval potentially at a special meeting connected to the ACE graduation on the 18th of May. There's going to be some concrete work that's coming in the district as well. Mr. Smith is still waiting for some final bids on that, but we do expect some concrete projects to be coming in the near future as well. Dr. Stewart and her team will be seeking the adoption of the ELA curriculum that you saw this evening. And then we would have a small number of personnel recommendations next week as well. You can see in the consent agenda, as we get into the spring, the number of program evaluations gets kind of heavy towards the end of the year. You can see that there's a number of program evaluations that be coming to the board. And then we will have a closed session next Thursday, and it would be around personnel. So that's the agenda for next week.
Okay, so are we going to move forward then with
our special meeting?
We can.
Okay, so I'd like to call to order. Everybody's here. So moving from 1.01, calling to order, move to 1.02 to declare a quorum.
Move
See
we
that?
adopt the agenda as presented.
Second?
Go ahead and vote.
Mhm.
Fred, sorry, Dr. Thomas.
Yes.
Mrs. Lonis,
Yes.
Mrs. DeGarden,
Yes.
Ms. Glover Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Belpreco.
Yes.
Ms. Enriquez Pinba. Yes. And I also vote yes. Moving on to 1.03, adoption of the agenda.
We just did that.
Oh, sorry, I'm tired. Moving to 1.04, personnel recommendations.
A lot on here.
Good evening, board members. Here to present personnel items 1 through 40 for your consideration and to request your approval. I'm open to any questions you may have.
I asked this earlier to Dr. Kilbride, but wanted to ask it in open form. We have a lot of transition going on at one of our elementary schools, and I'm just assuming that we have the support in place. There's a new administrator, staff kind of coming in and out, so I cracks.
Sure. The one thing that I'll say about some of the transition happening at Kratz, many of the we have candidates seeking Kratz right now, and because Kratz has had a longstanding relationship with UMSL and student teachers, many of the applicants that you'll see that are being selected to join Kratz are people that know Kratz and have been part of their effort for several years. So that's one benefit. I do stay in close conversation with Ms. McNulty on a regular basis, but you bring up a good point that I need to pay close attention to and see what other supports may be needed.
And the other part of the conversation, board members, also is that we are looking at our enrollment projections. And in the next 4 years, Kratz is expected to eclipse 600 students. And so 29 class sections at Kratz versus other buildings on the south end of the district like Booter and Iveland that have 23 and 24 sections. And so some of the additions to Kratz are we've added additional staff to meet the increased students, and the building is completely full. You know, we're using every space in the building. The stage in the north gym has been built out and is accommodating 2 EL teachers. We had to add an additional EL teacher this year to support the EL population in that building. Kratz is having to make some hard decisions about teachers having to travel, which is not something, travel on carts, which is not something that teachers in Ritenour have to do much. So they're trying to be creative.
So then when do we start the process of redistricting?
So that's a conversation that we need to start having. I brought that up to Dr. Alvin and Ms. Glover Jones during our weekly meeting. If we're looking at boundaries and redistricting, that's a community engagement process that would involve a lot of community feedback. And we're at the point now that we need to start considering that.
So we need to start it sooner rather than later.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, when they redistrict, when our kids were going to Marvin, and then they redistrict, and we had to go to Vineland, we had to switch, we knew a year ahead of time that we were going to be moved, which was good.
Yep.
I have a question about number 14.
Yes.
Relocating.
I've been told Washington State.
Oh, really? Okay. And 16?
One
All right.
more.
You can tell me tomorrow.
I'm sorry, I'm getting right, I think I'm getting to it now. It is in a county that is her home county, which is somewhat further away. So we're relocating where she's working to be closer to her home county.
And when it says pursuing another opportunity, it could be another school district.
It could be, in some cases it's not. I am keeping personal data of when it's a local school district and when it's not, and sometimes I started to, you'll see I started in some cases to list when they're leaving, leaving the profession too. I started to provide that detail as well.
That. And then one more, the very last page, the 35 to 40. What does that mean, lead teacher?
So for our summer school, we,
Okay.
for summer school, I'm sorry, we didn't.
That's all right. I figured
We
it was
didn't
that.
identify summer school. We intend to come back with the teachers in the June session.
Okay. That's all my questions.
So is 14 and 37 the same?
Yes.
But the summer school, so then they won't be doing that, right?
So they're doing the summer school and was seeking and looking for leadership opportunities and is not relocating until after summer school session.
So then our separation date that we have up at the top, at 14.
April.
So
That's what's in the summary. Oh.
I got 524 as a separation.
Oh, you're right. I'm looking at the wrong one.
yeah. We were listing that as the separation of the teaching teacher contract, and summer school is summer employment. We can certainly.
Yeah, it's a separate one.
Thank you for the clarification.
Madam President, I move that we accept personnel recommendations 1 through 40 as presented this time.
Second. All right, take a vote. Dr. Cox?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis? Yes. Ms. Burke? Yes. Ms. Silverton? Yes. Ms. Bober?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Enriquez Clipper? Yes. And I vote yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move we adjourn.
You're not gonna get it for a second.
I
Do we
second.
have a second?
I second.
All right. Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Lonis?
Yes.
Mr. Garden?
Yes.
Ms. Silverton?
Yes.
Ms. Bober?
Yes.
And Ms. Enriquez Clipper?
Yes.